We got a Dungeon Coach breakdown of Critical Role's Elden Ring one-shot. I am so beyond excited for this. I freaked out whenever I saw this, not only because Elden Ring is an awesome game, we'll get to that in a second, and it's Critical Role. I'm going to do these breakdowns again, so stay tuned for that. And Brennen Lee Mulligan is on here. And if you've seen my video on it, you know Brennen is my favorite dungeon master, and I have taken so much inspiration from him and Matt himself that to see them both in one thing is crazy. Over on Dimension 20, I saw Brennen DM for Matt Mercer as a player, and now they're switching places, and oh my gosh, I can't wait to break this down. And don't worry, you don't need to know anything about Elden Ring or have played it before or anything like that. This is going to be a breakdown of the Dungeons & Dragons gameplay and a lot of really cool moments, but it's only going to be the first half. I'm doing the first half. There's a whole bunch of things to break down in this over 4-hour one-shot, so I'm only going to cover the first hour and a half or so. And if you'll show it some love and like it up and everything, I definitely want to do a part 2 to this thing because there is so much to get into here. And for those of you who do like Elden Ring, I haven't announced it in a video yet. I don't know why I haven't yet, but I have a gaming channel, a DC gaming channel that I just launched about 2 weeks ago. I make videos on there every single day on Elden Ring. I'm doing a whole bunch of Elden Ring stuff. So if you want to support and just help out the channel, hop over there. Links will be in the top one in the description. I think I have like 300 subscribers right now. So it really is like starting over from scratch, and I would appreciate the support, showing some love. And if you do watch Elden Ring, I have a whole bunch of tutorials, quick guides and stuff over there. So check it out if that sounds cool. All right, now let's go. We of course have Matt Mercer as the DM, Brennen Lee Mulligan as a player who is gonna, there's gonna be so many things that Brennen does here that's just next level player moves to level up your player game. And then we have Marissa Ray, of course, from the original cast Critical Role, and Sam Riegel as well. And the other two I've never seen before, and we have Christina Ariel and Alexander Ward. And now with all the introductions out of the way, let's break this thing down. Setting up this first clip, Matt is about to break down these Elden Ring homebrew rules, love it here on this channel, of what he's done and tweaked and made for this little system they are for this one shot. Something I would love to do in the future, comment down below what you'd want to see this for, or Elden Ring itself. I want to make game system hacks for 5th edition, kind of like a Star Wars hack that I've seen before, this Elden Ring hack that you can see here at Matt Mercer's table. But I want to do these things to make you be able to play certain things and certain themes of different genres like Star Wars, Avatar, Dragon Ball Z, whatever. But I'll let Matt take it away.
This Site of Lost Grace, 1, heals all of you back to full for any damage you had taken. If you had used any of your sacred flasks, those would be restored as well.
Time out, hold up real quick. Sacred flasks in Elden Ring, you have a certain amount of flasks, so you can choose them to be health or mana restoring. So this doesn't really get into a lot here in the one shot, but I think that's a really cool idea of a healing potion that's tied to long rest, like a chargeable healing potion tied to your long rest, and you can choose to set it towards your mana or spell slots, or you can choose to set it towards health. And if you have 5 flasks, you do 3 health, 2 mana, or all 5 health, or whatever. And that also balances things in a way for martial classes versus spellcasters. And you can have all spellcasting flasks, and then you can regain spell slots or something. I think that'd be really cool. Just throwing it out there. Like every spell slot is a flask, and if you choose 5, you can get a 5th level spell slot back. That's crazy. Or you could shift them all to healing potions, and you can have healing potions as a bonus action and different charges of them. And again, that's just the tip of the iceberg here of the different types of things that enter in my mind when I want to start to make a homebrew system like this, and it gets me excited. But let's keep going.
If you had died, you would be restored here. And just kind of overview for the rules, since we did one initial combat. This heavily homebrewed system, everyone has a set number of stamina based on their build that they can spend on their player turn. They can either blow as much of it as they want to on attacks and abilities, but if they want to save some on the enemy turn, they can use it to dodge or block. If they use all of it, they cannot defend themselves, and attacks just do damage. And then all the stamina returns at the top of the player turn. So for those of you who are watching can follow along.
So here's a little bit more of a breakdown to show some stuff. What Matt did is there's an enemy turn and a player turn. It is literally back and forth. The initiative is very smooth in that regard. There's a whole bunch of different initiative systems that I have that I'm going to be putting into Alcanner's Almanac and everything, the Kickstarter book that I'm doing. Only 2 months left on that. But this is super smooth because the enemies go and then the players go and then the enemies go and they just kind of say what they do and they all go. But you have stamina, and it's a different amount of stamina for each character. So let's say there's 6 stamina. You can spend your stamina on offense during your turn to do attacks, extra attacks, all this kind of stuff. You can make as much attacks as your stamina can have. But when it comes to the enemy's turn, that stamina is the same resource pool that is used to dodge and defend and block and all that kind of stuff. So you got to choose wisely how much you want to leave in the tank, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a really, really interesting idea. And I also think it very much matches the feel of Elden Ring because you're dodging, barrel rolling all over the place, trying not to get hit by these monsters that are probably going to kill you 100 times. Not that I know Yeah, I'm not that good at Elden Ring, but I make some good videos on it. Anyway, this rolling stamina system is really, really cool, and it fits the vibe and theme of Elden Ring. There are so many times throughout this one shot where players can get called out on it. They used up all their stamina to try and finish it off, and they used their stamina for that extra attack. Didn't kill it. Now it's the enemy's turn and they have no stamina. And I just think the concept is cool overall of having a shared resource pool between offense and defense. You got to choose wisely. Another thing I almost forgot about how this whole thing works, to just interject here real quick, is Matt just rolls for damage. When these enemies do stuff, he just rolls for damage against anyone, whoever he targeted to make the swing at. And it's on the players to dodge or block and spend their stamina. So if they don't have anything, they're just straight up taking hits because they're just standing there because they have no stamina because they spent it doing other things. And they just take damage from it versus spending stamina to dodge out of the way or stamina to block it. So it's a very player facing system, which I really, really do like. And the players are the ones always making the rolls. And Matt's just saying what he's doing and what the enemies are doing. And here comes the damage. And it's on them to be able to see if it hits or not. Okay, just want to say that. All right, now we're getting into the first actual gameplay clip here. And I think this is a really subtle moment, and I love these moments to be able to do here on these breakdowns. Is Brennen Mulligan, his character, let me show him. His character is a shorter female character who is a servant to the prophetess. This cleric type prophet character, played very well. She has these very obvious, insightful quotes that she says that the rest of the group's like, oh, wow, you're so, they role play it up so well. And all of these characters really buy into how she's a prophetess and she can see the future, but except for this guy. So that's the whole vibe of the group. I thought it was a really fun group dynamic, but he is the servant to her character. So she's going to whisper into his ear. Sam's going to say something and he's going to get cut off. And he's going to, which, I mean, it doesn't feel good to get interrupted in real life and in D&D. You're having this happens to all of us. You can see at the table, Dungeon Masters pay attention to this, players pay attention to this, is cutting people off. It just doesn't feel good. It can lead to some, harbored resentment, maybe, even if it's subconscious or over time repeated, it can lead to a salty taste in some people's mouths. So I want you to watch what happens and also watch Matt Mercer of what he does in this situation to step in and not save the day, but in this group, for this level of group, they've friends and played for forever. They're essentially professionals at doing this. So that's not going to be a problem. But at our tables, I could definitely see this being an issue. So watch this, check it out.
And we have chosen to ride through the night that we already beat them. So.
Whisper.
While they're talking.
Prophet is also down for throat slitting, so that is.
Only in their sleep.
Yes, we wait for them to go to sleep.
Watch
I'm
Matt.
not going to wait for them to go to bed.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think
I was just going to say, we on horseback, we will not be very quiet.
And that's it. That's literally what I wanted to show you guys. And if that's so important. And Matt remembered that Sam got cut off, and it's just on the back of his mind. This is the pulse check you want to have as Dungeon Masters, to know like a player just got cut off. Or if you're a player and you just cut somebody off, or at the table you saw them get cut off, remember that. Listen and engage with what's going on. It's not necessarily bad. Like, it was a funny moment too. Him getting cut off was kind of funny as well. There was a little joke around the table a little bit. But then Matt came back to it and remembered that he got cut off. It was like, you were saying something. Super subtle thing, but expert level Dungeon Master thing. And this can be applied in lots of different ways. Keep a pulse check on players to make sure they didn't feel like make sure they feel like they were heard. Maybe there's a group dynamic. I've role played an NPC before, and we were doing battle tactics or something, and everyone in the group had kind of said their thing except for one player. And as the NPC I role played, like, what do you think? Like asking them and engaging them to see and get that pulse check. Some players might be sitting in the back, but some players might be more vocal, and you got to find the right balance for your table, know your players, and intervene when necessary. On to the next clip. We have the first mini little combat situation here. I'm super excited to see a little bit of the system in place and see what's going on and see the players in action. Let's go. So they use theater of the mind for this entire thing. There's no battle mats, extremely well crafted by Dwarven Forge. There's no online tabletop, any sorts of things. This is all theater of the mind. Very, very basic, but very, very simple, and extremely great for one shots. Extremely great for whenever you have these crazy types of miniatures that you'd have for Elden Ring. Like, you just don't have those things. I have a whole video coming out soon on theater of the mind tips, but this is a great example here in this one shot of what Matt does whenever they start the combat. You're setting the stage, you're trying to build the logistics and explain stuff, and you can see it. Watch whenever it happens. Matt's going to start to explain it, and then he's going to realize that there's like, okay, I'm just going to get some spatial awareness things. I honestly don't think he was maybe planning this out 100% beforehand, because the camera in this professional setup, it never actually switches to the miniatures to show it. So I don't think this was planned. I think as he's describing it, you'll see the moment, watch him, is okay. And so he brings out some stuff. I would heavily recommend for Dungeon Masters, get the miniatures, or get at least standard miniatures, get objects of some kind to show the logistics of kind of where things are at, and then you can help prepare it from there. So here we go.
We have the two that are coming to the very, very front with swords. They're going to rush, as you guys are all clustered together quietly, they charge upward, and just for kind of spatial awareness.
There it is.
So I'll just go ahead and put these here so you all have an idea of where they are.
Picturing it. Okay.
And for...
Doesn't have it prepared and ready, but that's fine, because I think this is a smart judgment call in the moment.
Alrighty, so...
Theater of the Minis?
Marisha said it the best, theater of the minis. And I wanted to show that because this is a whole production thing. I mean, they have a whole thing set up, and you see Matt kind of moving around, scrambling. And that's no jab at Matt whatsoever. That's props to adapting whenever your description coming out of your mouth isn't like matching up to what you feel like you want to have. Then bring in some visual aids. Theater of the minis. Get something. I don't even know what the minis were. Again, there's never a camera shot to show it, which makes me had that thought. And you can see kind of like he's just grabbing stuff. He has so many things prepared for behind that screen of his. If you've ever seen a shot from behind, he's just grabbing stuff, putting it out there. Absolutely well done. Exactly what I would have done. Good thing of him thinking on the fly to be able to prepare something like that so the players don't feel confused. You have, again, a pulse check of how well your description comes across. And if you're describing something and you see the looks on the players' faces like, so how far am I? And they start to like get confused. Stop, change your plans, adapt on the fly, put some stuff out for them so they can actually not be confused. It's a lot more frustrating combat to have to be like, where am I, who's where, and that's using a very similar system to how I run Theater of the Mind, where I have different distances. I personally have melee range, near, and far. Super simple, right? And I could get into that, but that's a whole different video. Matt has the Elden Ring system that he's doing this little one-shot thing of, where spells are either short range or long range. Super simple. And with all this talk about descriptions and being able to paint beautiful pictures in your player's mind to keep them not confused, on the same page as you, and fully immersed in your world, you should check out Describe.com. They've been a sponsor of this channel for a long time, and I appreciate the support from them, and I appreciate the service that they provide you guys. They have now thousands of professionally written text boxes for literally anything you could possibly think of in your game. Locations, magic items, monsters, and more. You want to describe the look of a crazy monster to really set some fear in your players' hearts, or how cool this magic item looks that they just found, or how crazy the spell looks that the enemy caster just did. Descriptions are a huge part of this game. We are talking to each other at the table and are in our imaginations, and we use those words to try and paint these pictures, and Describe.com really helps out with that. They have a ton of stuff on there for free, or they have a subscription service you can get that unlocks every single thing, which keeps on growing day by day. Use code The Dungeon Coach to get a discount. All right, now back to the breakdown. This one's super simple, but it's Brennen as a player doing something that I think players should do more often. Advocate for themselves in creative ways and have a bartering type of nice deal that you make with the Dungeon Master based on certain things that are outside the box, technically speaking. So Brennan's going to ask Matt for something. And again, this is the homebrew system, so it's a little bit different, but you can apply this towards creative uses for barbarian rages or other types of things, other items or different tweaks you can make. He's already used his movement and he's attacking and he's spending stamina, and he has 3 stamina left for the record, okay? And he's going to ask Matt something.
I think then I might... Can I use a stamina to move back in front of the prophetess?
I'll allow that, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Love it.
Out, leap, burn an arc around
Wants
that
to
way,
do
and
something.
then
He has a
shift
vision
back
he's trying to go for.
try and
That's not
get
broken, sure.
in front of where the prophetess is.
And
Fingers
then
down
I
two.
have 2 points of stamina left. I'm just going to take a battle axe swing at one of these dudes.
Tactical. Plan, well thought through. Good job, Brennen. Brennen knew he had 3 stamina left. He probably knew, and again, I'm not inside of his head for this, he probably knew he wanted to make an attack with this. He had extra stamina, and the super optimized player that Brennen is, he wanted to use it, but he wanted to do something. He wanted to stand in front of the prophetess. Very much so a tactical, min-maxing type of player move, and a role play move for what his character is designed to do, protect the prophetess, right? He wants to do that. So he's like, hey, can I do this? And It's not part of the rules as written. Even in this homebrew system we're talking about here, you can't just spend stamina like that to move around the battlefield. So you have your movement, it's gone. But he's like, you know what? Yeah, it would make sense to spend stamina to move here. Sure, great, done. At my tables, I have a very homebrew open mind to things, and a lot of my Dungeon Master rulings have some interesting, creative, different tweaks that I make about, how about this? That's a good option. And I've seen a lot of times my players take that and use it against me in some great, awesome ways. Sometimes all right, you know what? That'll be like 10 movement speed, but you could totally do that for 10 movement speed, and then you have the rest of it. And I'll have them use movement speed as a resource of some kind. Kind of like in this case, Matt and Brennen are using stamina as a resource of some kind in a different way. And this bartering doesn't have to necessarily be for exchange of resources. It could be items or even action, bonus action type stuff of whatever you're gonna barter with your Dungeon Master for. And they might even make you to ask a check. There's happened before where they make a pretty good offer. I'm like, all right, you know what? All right, let's make a check. The DC's only 10 for this or something. I might say the DC or not, but there you go. All right, I'm sorry, guys. We got another clip of Brennen being a great player here because these little notes for players, I love when players do this. I have players at my table that do this. I would love to have my gameplay video shown and I could show you them doing the same thing because I want to foster that in my players so that they all play together and have that sense of camaraderie. And Brennen is a super mega nerd, knows the game inside and out, and there's a new player at the table who is just made a roll and they maybe didn't add the right modifiers or something, and he handles this in a very good way. It's not I don't know if in board games it's called quarterbacking, when you boss people around and tell them what they're doing wrong and stuff. He does this in a very good way that doesn't get that vibe at all, and he's just helpful. So here we go.
She rolls a 10 and attempts to do her beast claw.
She rolls a 10 to hit? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that misses.
Do you add anything for beast? I think you roll with a +5 modifier on that.
Oh,
right?
you are right. So it's 15.
15 does hit, though.
There we go.
So it is kindness. So then at that time that she walks forward,
I'm gonna have Zack play it back when Brennen does his glasses thing. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. It's knowing the game well enough to be able to help and lift up other players. Because I guarantee she had a 10 on the dice. He sees the 10 on the dice and knows that there has to be some sort of modifier to that. Probably a +5. He even said that himself. And then, oh my gosh, it works, and she now gets to do it. And even now, look at the smile on his face, just helping his allies.
Calmly walks forward, her kind of eyes closed. You know that walk that they do in cartoons where they're like
and now she gets to have a super awesome moment that would have been a failure and a miss, and those are fine, that happens, but good job. Speaking of failures, this next clip, Sam fails on an attack. Matt starts to describe this failure, but Sam plays into his own failure, which you should do as players. These are tips here for players and Dungeon Masters. Is Sam goes along with the failure and describes kind of what he's doing and whatever. Matt sees this description and shifts what he was describing to kind of match what Sam's describing. So Dungeon Masters, we could go off and explain how the failure looks and all that kind of stuff. But if your player's kind of engaged and kind of describing how his failure is going, go with that. Watch.
It doesn't really matter. I rolled a 2, so it's only 8 points.
That misses, unfortunately. You go to the step and you take the hit and you go to swing, but unfortunately,
watch Sam.
It gets stuck amongst the tentacles and you have to pull it free.
Watch that back. He doesn't know what to say. Sam starts pantomiming,
stuck amongst the tentacles
and he goes and jumps right on it.
But good try.
Love it. Good try. Matt was starting to describe things. He was kind of, like as we all just make all of this stuff up. He's describing what's happening, about to improv something that was happening, but then he sees Sam doing it, and that's the expansion. He jumps on top of that, and they collaboratively tell the story together. Beautiful. Now here, I just had to show this because Brennen, my boy Brennen, he got
15
how do you want to do
points
this?
of fire damage.
How do you want to do this?
Look at him.
I've been watching your show for so many years. I got it. How do you want to do this?
yes, queen, yes.
I look at you as you're being pulled out, and I'm leaping in. My tons of red braids with woad and different clay in them begin to alight. My eyes, the irises go bright red, and as I'm going in, I say, "It is always hard to take the first step in believing." And I give you a quick smooch on the lips. On the front of my helmet. The helmet, a couple extra because it has to go through the metal. And I reach out to you and say, "I believe." And the dragon head erupts from my body. And roiling all the veins of this inky black monstrosity begin to glow with embers. and spread down all the tentacles. The prophetess shows you the way. She just needs a fire to light it.
Wow, right? Like the level and the role play, bringing in other players. He brought in 2 other players in that description, not just all a self-centered, like, this is the cool thing that I do. He brought in the joke, the running joke of the one non-believer and the prophetess, and then he brought in the prophetess and he referenced her and even gave her a shout out in the middle of the whole thing, and then elevated it the whole. Wow. Love it, love it, love it. Now for this clip, we have some more DM versus player, or not necessarily versus, it's just a collaborative bartering going back and forth between Brennen and Matt. Matt's asking the group for a general perception check of things. Brennen has an idea and it throws out something, and you can even see the reaction of like, oh, that's a kind of a cool idea. As one dungeon master respecting another, Matt goes along with it. And it even comes into play in the future. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I'll say 2 of you can keep point on being lookout to roll perception checks.
Perception. I can take a look out.
I perceived once and didn't find anything. So
I'm not gonna do perception because I don't have good perception, but I'll make a survival. Can I make a survival check to maybe give?
You see how he corrected himself? He said, I'll make a survival check, and he backtracked. He's asking. Always players frame this as asking. Okay, let's go. Rewind.
Perception because I don't have good perception, but I'll make a survival. Can I make a survival check to maybe give us advantage on a later stealth check?
Ooh.
I'll allow that, yeah. To go ahead and gauge the landscape around you and ensure that you know kind of the best ways to adapt to the topography ahead.
And now we're picking back up 5 minutes later after that roll happened. 5 minutes later, again, referencing back to Dungeon Masters having that pulse check, that memory, keep in the back of your mind, keep track of, oh, the player that got cut off, oh, that one player that had a great thing for advantage. Hold it on the back of your minds as you kind of think of these things. Sometimes you might want manipulatives behind your screen to help you reminder, or maybe make a jot little note down if you have time while things are going on, or maybe the player can help you remember it because they're going to be excited to use it, right? But Matt remembers this thing, and out of nowhere, he says it himself and ties in Brennan's creative ask to bring it into this moment right here. Check it out.
Set the steeds off to wherever realm they were brought from. I would like you all to make a stealth check. As part of your roll earlier, I will say that one of you is allowed advantage after rolling.
After rolling?
Cool.
All right.
So okay.
Like in a just in case?
Yeah, one re-roll essentially.
There you go. How beautiful is that? Is like the creative ask of Brennen to be able to literally insert a mechanic out of nowhere. He asked for 2 people to make a perception check, and Brennen was like, hey, can I do this thing? He got advantage. Cool. Great, awesome thing to help the group out in a moment like this. And then Matt took it and applied that in the way that he saw fit in another creative way. Look at that. That was an awesome tag team homebrew situation right there by the 2 of them. That's why I had to highlight that point. Really cool creativity from players and dungeon masters working together to be able to have everything happen together and thinking outside the box. If you like these breakdown videos, let me know down in the comments. If you like what I do here and want to help me support doing it more, I have a huge announcement. This is the end of the video, so I have a huge announcement that I'm going to be making here in about a month. It's going to be an absolute game changer and a big, huge thing that's happening. And it's not what you think it is. Not Alcanar's Almanac, although there is only 2 months left to be able to pre-order the book for Alcanar's Almanac hardcover, and then it's gone. That is a big, huge thing happening, but there's something more. So stay tuned for that and keep thinking outside the box. Peace.